Okay, let's recap a bit, shall we?
Imagine yourself in a frozen forest. You are standing in a clearing. The trees around you so tall they touch the sky. Pure white snowflakes fall all around. You can feel them melt on your skin. You are not cold. It cannot overcome the warmth of your beating heart. You are in control. Calm. At peace.
What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and today what I have for you guys is a pretty important video connecting the dots between the Frozen Forest, the Black Ops 3 main menu, and the Call of the Dead remake within DLC 4. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed all of my previous Call of the Dead remake videos where I go over all of the storyline evidence and current leaks that we have so far, which prove that Call of the Dead is DLC 4 and not the Great War. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is, of course, the Frozen Forest. This was beautifully brought to my attention by a good buddy of mine, Eric Maynard. I have his links down below in the description to both his Twitter and Twitch channels. Definitely drop him a follow on both of those accounts. And what he brought to my attention is the fact that in Siberia exclusively, there is a tree known as the Larix tree, which only grows in Siberia and perfectly resembles the trees we could see at the main menu of Black Ops 3 and just the Frozen Forest in general. So what this could honestly mean is we could see a similar situation to how we actually unravel the storyline in Alpha Omega, where it wraps up so many loose ends and perfectly ties so many things together, connects all of the dots, and really clarifies everything that was really confusing to us or stuff that just hasn't been answered yet ever since Black Ops 3 release. So obviously Alpha Omega ties a lot of loose ends with the Avogadro, Yuri the Pentagon Thief, Broken Arrow, Cornelius Purnell, the Nuketown Camp Edwards site, and so many other things that many of us didn't expect to even get an answer for in Alpha Omega, but we just did. So without a doubt, Treyarch's not going to leave a loose end just open like that, especially a big one, which is the Frozen Forest, or the entire meaning of both the Black Ops 3 main menu and all of the memory trailers back from Black Ops 3. So as I've spoke about many times before, the Nikolai memory trailer in particular really makes me think that that one takes place after the events of Blood of the Dead, since the speech that Nikolai gives in that trailer is very similar to the one we hear at the beginning of the Alpha Omega intro, where he does read the Chronorium, learns of his true calling, and figures out why he's an important character going forward in the Ether storyline. And I made a video about that before, I'll have it linked down below in the description, but there's also audio that is left over for Classified, which essentially gives us the interpretation that there could be a second ending to Classified here in Black Ops 4 Zombies. As I've gone over in that video, there is some other audio in the same folder as the cutscene audio for Classified, which is actually Nikolai sort of reminiscing on the same speech he gave in the original Nikolai memory trailer, but there's a couple of parts that are different about it. And when it comes to that audio specifically, it really gets me thinking that if you were to do the Easter egg on either hardcore or realistic or something like that within Black Ops 4 Zombies, it'll either trigger that audio to play, or it could actually just play the Nikolai memory trailer, which kind of gives us the hint that yes, this map takes place after the events of Blood of the Dead. Nikolai has read the Chronorium and now knows of his true calling going forward before we go to Alpha Omega. And obviously you watch the Alpha Omega intro and you hear a very similar speech to the Nikolai memory trailer, so it's honestly a perfect bridge to the gap in between Classified and Alpha Omega. So whether or not there's a second ending to Classified is currently unknown. We just know for a fact there are no strings tied to this extra set of audio before Nikolai, which gets me thinking that it'll be a similar situation to the first classified ending cutscene, which is the fact that you do nothing to trigger it except hitting round 150. There are no strings or steps to unlock it. You just have to hit a certain round, and the game is just programmed to play the actual cutscene. So it could be a very similar case with that cut audio, but in terms of the frozen forest in that trailer, it gets me thinking that the frozen forest will definitely get some clarification within DLC 4 for Black Ops 4 Zombies. Now, when it comes to the importance of the Lyrics tree here in the frozen forest, obviously it's in Siberia, so when we do go to the Call of the Dead remake within DLC 4, not only is that answering a lot of questions we had back from Black Ops 3, but it's really ending the Ether storyline where it all began. As I've gone over many times, Siberia is obviously the location where the Tunguska 115 meteor first made contact with Earth, which is also the first contact ever made on Earth with element 115. So ending the storyline there is what honestly makes the most sense to me, and that's what I go into when it comes to my theory that I brought up for the main Easter egg on this Call of the Dead remake. As I brought up many times with many of my friends, the Easter egg may involve us blowing up that Tunguska 115 meteor before it makes contact with Earth. So the Easter egg could be on par with Moon or Der Eisendrache, where we see a massive explosion in the sky of some sort. So maybe we go to a point in time at Siberia before the Tunguska meteor hits Earth. Maybe the Easter egg involves us destroying that meteor so that somehow it sends a ripple in time, which can either weaken Dr. Monty or drain his powers completely, and that's how we can then go to a boss fight, possibly in a desert environment similar to the Alpha Omega Great War scene. Then we can face him from there and fully end the Ether at that point in time. So that's just an honest theory with how the Easter egg could work, possibly going to a point in time before that meteor makes contact with Earth, or we can go to a point in time when the meteor already hit Earth, but just destroy it at its core, destroy the 115 meteor right there in Siberia before any humans can make contact with element 115. So the map could be very similar to Classified in the sense that it takes place during multiple points in time, and what I mean by that is that Classified is both a prequel and a sequel to the original 5. It's a prequel because it takes place before the events of 5, before that meeting between Kennedy, McNamara, Nixon, and Fidel Castro, but it's also a sequel at the same time, since the Ultimus you play as in the map Classified, obviously in between Shangri-La and Moon, is not the same Ultimus that's present during the ending cutscene on that map on round 150. The Ultimus in that cutscene is post-Moon Ultimus, far after the events of 5, Shangri-La, Moon. Right after that is when they obviously are messing with the teleporter on the Moon and get teleported back in time to after the events of 5 by Cornelius Purnell and Broken Arrow. They're then locked in Hangar 4, and obviously in the Broken Cycle universe, that's when Primus comes from Blood of the Dead to rescue them. I'm assuming in the original universe, if they got teleported back to Earth, they just died in Hangar 4. But there's also a possibility that in the original universe, when they were stuck on the Moon after the main Easter egg, Big Bang Theory, they might have died on the Moon instead. So we just don't know how the original universe's post-Moon Ultimus actually survived, or whether or not they died, but we do know in the Broken Cycle universe, Primus then rescued them from Hangar 4 at the ending of Classified, leading perfectly into the intro to Alpha Omega. So maybe the Call of the Dead remake could be a very similar situation, where maybe it takes place after the 115 Tunguska meteor hits Earth, but before the events of Call of the Dead. We just don't know. But what I mean is that it could take place during a very awkward moment in time, but perfectly wraps up all loose ends for the Ether storyline. But the next thing I wanted to bring up is something that my good buddy Fajardi actually noticed when he was free roaming on the multiplayer map Remnant. Now obviously Remnant has a lot of different Easter eggs for a lot of different zombies maps across Treyarch Zombies history, including the Chaos storyline as well. But as he was free roaming, he came across this very specific map towards the back end of Remnant, and on this map features many key locations in Ether Zombies history. Nothing for Chaos, just exclusively the Ether story. And if you look at this map, you can see some locations like Hanford Campus, Camp Edward, Groom Lake, 115 Depository, Broken Arrow Headquarters, the potential gateway or the dig site in France, which is actually Origins. We obviously see a gateway to Agartha at the end of the Origins Easter egg when we send Samantha to the house. If we look towards the right, right, we could see Province 22, which is Dairais, where some of the weapon testing is, and obviously the Jumping Jack Nova Crawlers over there in Shanghai, I believe it is. But if you look at the center of this map, you could see a time paradox site or potential gateway. Two things here which are right on top of where the Tunguska 115 meteor made its first contact with Earth in Siberia. So obviously I put a map on screen of how close this key location is to Siberia or the Tunguska 115 meteor site. It is very crazy, but obviously we've been looking for just about anything within Black Ops 4 with the second half of Operation Apocalypse Z, which could point towards a Call of the Dead remake besides all the things we've already gone over in some of my previous videos when it comes to the storyline. And this map is honestly very important here on Remnant because it clearly shows that there is a potential gateway where the Tunguska 115 meteor is. So if we go to Siberia after the actual meteor makes contact with Earth, we could create a gateway to Agartha right there by the meteor and somehow use that to our advantage to defeat Dr. Monty. But it also says time paradox site, so we could see a very similar situation to how the time loop actually works on Shangri-La with Brock and Gary. And obviously in one of those Revelations radios, which I'll play in a couple of seconds, we have George Romero's assistant Sally looking for George and the crew over at Siberia, but accidentally teleported herself to Brock and Gary at Shangri-La and got herself stuck in a time loop. I'll play that quote for you right now.
It's been 6 weeks since the rest of the Call of the Dead cast and crew went missing. Hollywood's lost its fucking mind with this story. An entire production vanishes? Crazy talk. I told you, this is why you don't shoot in Siberia. So with agent on line 1, manager on line 2, I needed to sort this quickly. I'd rather have zombies come for me than an agent. That's real horror. I don't need that. I started going through his research, and good fucking lord, this is a confusing mess. So much shit about time travel, different dimensions. Honestly, I'm not even sure what he's getting into. You can make this stuff up. A mad German scientist, a foul-mouthed American, a drunk Soviet, and a warrior Japanese soldier, all working together? So I started with a simple one. Something about 2 guys named Brock and Gary looking for Agartha. They finished like dead. Figured I'd start there. Next thing I know, I'm in this jungle, and it's hot and humid, and the sky goes black. Like dark black. I look up, there's an eclipse, and these things start chasing me. Like zombies. Trust me, I know how it sounds. I've been fighting them so long now. I should be dead. In fact, I'm pretty sure I have died, but it just keeps going.
So the main Easter egg in the Call of the Dead remake could have us either destroying the 115 meteor before it actually makes contact with Earth, or we somehow use it to our advantage, and before destroying it, we make a gateway to Agartha and somehow cause a time paradox to go ahead and defeat Dr. Monty and really rid the world of the zombies apocalypse. But the fact that it says time paradox just instantly screams Shangri-La to me. Could be a very cool Easter egg, obviously the very last one for the Ether storyline, so I'm sure Treyarch will make it the best it could possibly be. But a time paradox in the Call of the Dead remake could honestly leave us with more questions than answers, and obviously could put us in a very similar boat to how we were when we first completed the Origins and Revelations Easter eggs, where we didn't fully understand those cutscenes in their entirety when we first beat those maps, and we might not get the answers to whatever DLC 4 leaves us wondering until we play DLC 5 or the Victus remakes, Transit, Dairais, and Buried, that take place in between Alpha, Omega, and the Call of the Dead remake, which will obviously fill in all of the gaps, tie up all loose ends, and truly give us the entire ending of the Ether storyline when it comes to all of the crews and all parties involved. But obviously, when we first beat the Origins ending, we all thought it was just children playing with toys. We didn't know that the Origins ending actually takes place in between Gorod Krovi and Revelations. Yes, we do send Samantha to the house during the actual map itself, Origins, but but that ending cutscene that plays is actually something that happens right after Gorod Krovi and right before or leading right into the Revelations intro. So that's obviously where Samantha and Eddie are playing with the toys, kind of reliving the zombie storyline in their perspective, but obviously in the perfect world that obviously Monty wants them to be in. And then the sirens go off, which are hinting towards Primus finally coming to the house after Gorod Krovi, leading perfectly into Revelation. So it's a very complex ending cutscene for Origins that not many people actually understand, but now we do know the full meaning behind Origins. And we then have Revelations ending, where we obviously see Primus being sent back to the Great War holding the original staves, and none of us knew what that meant either. It was obviously depicted as one of the worst endings or one of the worst cutscenes in Treyarch Zombies history. We just didn't know what that actually meant, but I think it took a little while before we understood that Black Ops 3 in its entirety, and even the Revelations ending, was just depicting the completed cycle, how the cycle actually starts and how it ends. That's all that game's purpose really was, which is really important to know, but didn't further the narrative beyond that. Black Ops 4 furthered the narrative where it showed how we can break the cycle, how the Ether could truly have a beautiful ending to where all parties go home happy and the zombie apocalypse finally ends. But the ending of Revelations isn't necessarily the good ending. That's just completing the cycle and essentially starting it all back over again. So those are really the meanings of Origins and Revelations that obviously not many of us knew at the time of completing those maps. So it could be a similar case to the Call of the Dead Remakes ending cutscene, where we do understand some things, a lot of loose ends are tied up, but there are a few more questions left that might not be answered for a while. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. I really hope you guys found this video helpful. Big shout out once again to Eric Maynard and my good buddy Fajardi, also my graphics designer here on the channel, who found a bunch of crazy things which really made this video possible, with Tunguska, Siberia, the Larix trees, the map, all of that juicy stuff leading perfectly into a Call of the Dead remake for DLC 4. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Check all links down below in the description, and peace out, everyone.